And we're live. Welcome to the
We're
Fire
live.
Yourself show. This is the show that teaches all about how to exit the day-to-day operations of your business and how to build a more passively owned business. I'm your co-host, Lance, here with Perry Martin. And today we're going to be talking about Perry's experience in business, how he got involved in becoming a business coach, and some opportunities got upcoming for all business owners who want to learn how to get out of the day-to-day operations of their business and potentially sell as well.
Great.
How you doing, Perry?
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, excellent. So what I think we'll do is, for those who don't know you, right? So we've got people who are new to the Fire Yourself ecosystem. Can you tell us a little bit more, just a 2-minute story? Who's Perry and how did he get to be where he is today?
2 minutes? Really?
Yeah. We'll dig
I've been
deeper.
doing this for 40-something years, I think. Yeah, 35 years. I think some questions that you asked me today will sort of flesh out that more. So the 2 minutes is, I never put my hand up. I never said to myself as a young kid that I'm going to be working with business owners to build them out of the day-to-day operations and building passively owned businesses. That's not what I said I was going to be doing. In fact, I always wanted to be in business, and we'll probably dig into this today. I'm a working class Kiwi boy who sort of worked on farms and stuff most of his life. And my passion was surfing, and I happened to meet some mentors when I left New Zealand and moved to Hawaii, and they were always in the surf with me. And I was sort of looking at these guys, they're about 40 at the time. They drove really nice cars, and I got to talk to them and got to know them over some period of time, and I was always intrigued because they were obviously wealthy and they were flying off here to go skiing and then doing boat trips in the Mentawais, and they didn't seem to work, and they were in the surf as much as me, and I was a surf bum. So I was like, how are these guys doing it? So that's sort of the start of it, and what I learned from them was just absolutely amazing. And you know, they're very wealthy people that didn't want to work and basically had businesses that run without them, and I was part of setting up the systems and the operations for their business portfolios. Actually gave me a whole other view of life, because as a working class Kiwi, where people pride themselves on hard work, right? I got to see people who lived very differently, which was business was there for them to spend more time with their families, to do the things that they loved. So I sort of got bought into that system. And just secondly, you've given me 2 minutes. I'm now up to 3. I'm at 3, but it's I've also have another side. I've been involved with a very heavy duty personal development work, and I'm not talking about the fluffy, wuffy personal development work, from a very young age. And obviously through all that deep inner work, I really started to understand human behaviour. And so, you know, here I was from the age of about 24, working closely with business, but really starting to understand people and see their behaviours and seeing their subconscious or unconscious behaviours that were driving them that they had no awareness of. So, you know, those two things combined extremely well when it came to bringing on team staff and what have you. Now, just last answer to your question is, everything that ever happened to me came because people would come and sit with me and ask me questions, and I never advertised. I would just sit down with, this is after I left my mentors years later, and I'd just meet people, and people would send people to me, and I'd just sit down, have a cup of coffee with them, and I could help them sort of get out of the day-to-day operations of the business. But part of that was actually sitting there and seeing their behavioural patterns that got them stuck in the business. So it was just a natural, organic process for me to get where I am today.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. We'll definitely dig into a few of those points as we go through our conversation today. But just out of interest, those guys you worked for, what kind of businesses do they have?
Oh, everything. So they were involved with the restaurant business. They were involved with manufacturing. This is way before online businesses. So brick and mortar manufacturing, export businesses, importing businesses, retail business to business businesses. You know, and that's a great question, because when I work with people, a lot of them think, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me. You can't do that in this type of business. You can do it in any type of business. It's just a basic bunch of principles that must be brought into your business, and it can be done in any business. In fact, I've done it myself in a multiple of businesses, different niches.
And what point did you move into the coaching space?
Do you remember a gentleman called Brendan Nichols? He's an Australian.
Maybe a bit before my time, maybe.
Yeah, I know. You're going my age, right? Yeah, wow, that's cheeky. But anyway, Brendan Nichols is quite a renowned Australian business development coach and mentor. He's quite famous in the 90s into the early 2000s. And he was involved as my mentor in one of the businesses that I ran, which was a finance business and financial education business. And he said to me, Perry, one day, he goes, have you ever noticed that people want to come and talk to you and they want to ask you questions? And I said, yeah. And by the way, that had happened all my life since I was a little kid. People would come and tell me all sorts of things. Actually, I'm going to go back to when I was 11. I'd be on a bus in New Zealand and, be a young guy, and a lady would sit next to me and she would start offloading to me about, all these horrible things that her nephew had done, and he just got out of prison. So people used to come and offload all this stuff on me, and my wife has always joked about it. She goes, all my friends tell you things that they don't even tell me. And so there was something in me at a young age that would just be, I was not that judgmental. I was actually never that judgmental, even though I was a real ratbag. Like my childhood, because of what I experienced in my childhood, I was in Borstal for violent offending at a young age, which is what put me on the personal development path. I needed to clean my act up. But, just as a young person, a 10, 11-year-old, people just tell me things. And I could see the lady get off the bus and she'd be like, you could see she was relieved, and I was just like a 10-year-old sort of stunned about what the person was telling me. But that sort of applied all my life, because people would just come and tell me things. And the more personal development work I did, the less judgmental I got. Because, if you own your own dysfunctional behaviours and your own, if you're willing to own all your own traits, they're no different to you. So you stop judging people. And so that just continued. People would come and talk to me. They'd ask me to go and have a lunch with them or to sit down with them, and I'd have a chat with them, and I'd help them see things in a new way. I'd help them see the behaviours that were getting them stuck in the business, and I'd give them business strategies. And Brendan pointed out, he goes, because he was a great believer, and so am I, in what he calls alignment, which is, if someone's coming and asking you all these questions, Perry, they're doing that for a reason. And what does that mean for you? And he actually asked me to take 3 days out of that business. He said, well, I want you to take 3 days out of that business and think about that. You don't even advertise, and people just keep coming and asking you these questions. So I took that 3 days out, and I really thought about it. I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it. I enjoy helping people. It's natural for me to do this. So we re-engineered the finance business, and I started just going out and started consulting, and just went. And I'd get results for clients. So things proceeded from, if you get results for clients, things tend to go well, don't they, Lance? You know that in your own business.
Yeah. And here we are today. So now you've developed a whole career in coaching. So this is something we've talked about personally quite a lot, but I think it's worth bringing up for people listening. The coaching industry now, say the last 5 years, has been more flooded than ever with coaches. Everyone's a coach. There's low barrier to entry. Everyone seems to be qualified, right? So it'd be great for you to go into a bit more detail about what it is you do different, not just as a personal coach, but specifically in the business realm. And if you can tie that back into some of the the inner work you talked about as well.
I have to, because you can't do it. You can't be separate, right? I am concerned on a number of levels about the coaching industry, and I'll just say I'm concerned in general about the spruiker industry. So the spruiker industry, I'm a marketer. I've been trained in marketing. I understand, how to communicate, to make sales. But what we've got now is, as you just said, low financial requirements to entry, and anyone can say anything about what they do and what they have done. So what we see is people claiming they're experts. And how can you claim that you're an expert unless you've had an incredible number of years working deeply into a subject? That's the first thing I want to say. With real world experience. And so I doubt that many of those coaches really have that version of experience. Not a lot of them. But it's so easy for them to say. And the reason that I say that I'm concerned is it besmirches or ruins the name of all the good quality operators out there, because now people are competing against low quality operators, and then people get burned. So everyone's making a course these days, and I have my viewpoints about courses. I like courses without human interaction, without proper guidance, without someone there that's really stirring you up to see how you think unconsciously that you're not aware of, as an example. Things don't tend to change. So back to the start of your question, at a very early age, I was brought into how to build a business to operate independently of the owner. And that's a core skill set and a core training that I was given by my mentors. And then I honed that skill in a lot of the franchise businesses, because the people that were selling the licenses wanted their top franchise people to have more than one franchise, right? Yeah. So I would come in and apply the same thing that my mentors taught. So I work with a lot of the top franchise organisations here in Australia, building those business owners out of their businesses, and so they go and get another license in another area and do the same thing. I think I've got to about 10 franchise owners who had like 4 or 5 different outlets all running, So then I went into the salon industry, and I did the same thing in the salon industry. I've done the same thing in the beauty industry. I've done that in a whole bunch of industries, applying those principles and building those people out of those business owners out of their businesses. Now, because I've had such hands-on experience in doing that, you learn by mistakes what works, what doesn't work, and you soon build up a vast amount of experience. So, I see a lot of people out there talking about scale at the moment. Scale your business, grow. And these are people in marketing. That's not how you grow a business. They use the words, but it's a special level of expertise when you're talking about building business owners out of their business, so the business runs for them, not because of them. And that takes years to sort of hone.
Scale's a buzzword at the moment.
What was that?
Scale is a buzzword at the moment.
Oh, it's a buzzword. And the people that are buying into this are often so roadblocked in their business because they don't know what we know that they can't even apply what they're learning from those courses and those programs.
So how do you see the personal work start to connect with the actual technical work of the steps of getting someone out of the business?
A great question, and I'll probably go to some examples here. Well, the first thing is most people will go and get technical skills. Like, it is cool to get technical skills, it's like we just, we go to school, and when we go to school, we're not taught anything about ourselves. We're not taught about emotions. We're not taught about belief systems. No one even analyzes your character structure or your personality style to find out what your strengths and weaknesses are. There's no communication about that. And in fact, most human beings walking around this planet are very disconnected, cut off, and have no emotional intelligence. None whatsoever. They don't know what drives them. They don't know. They don't even know that they've got subconscious beliefs that they're not even aware of. They don't want to own any behaviour pattern because it just brings up their judgment. And so we've just got a planet mostly of people with egos. The ego starts to drop when you do deep inner work. It starts to drop away. Now, I'll apply this to business, okay? So, I'll just step back, because so if we're not taught to understand ourselves, we can never master ourselves. That's the first thing, right? So people go off and get these technical skills just in the same way as you went to school, and the holy grail of school was increasing intellectual knowledge. Well, great, intellectual knowledge is important, but it's the driver of that intellectual knowledge, and most people don't have the emotional intelligence or the capacity to implement effectively and properly because of their patterns that they know nothing about. So I'll share an example for you. I remember probably 15 years ago, a lady came to me and she'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaches that were giving her technical assistance to scale out the business and get her team working, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Had people in to train her team up in sales and blah, 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 blah. I spent 5 minutes with this business owner. I could see what the problem was. So she had what we call a people-pleasing personality. I'll quickly just profile her so you get a sense of this. So her highest value, beautiful human being, loved her. Her highest value was harmony, peace, contribution, connection. Okay. Now, when she was growing up, sometimes her dad wasn't really there for her, didn't listen to her, and all these things matter, right? So what she sort of learned was, well, I'm not that important, and the way that I get my dad's attention is by being really nice and building relationship with dad and not sort of telling him what I want or what I think, right? And as I said before, she already had this inherent sort of personality makeup, a high value of harmony, connection, giving, contribution. Now, so just so you know, if I was to put on a customer service person, I would employ her right now. She would be perfect for the role. With her wounding, with those dysfunctional patterns, that wouldn't matter. She could come into that role and she would do it really, really well. But as a business owner, the way that pattern was playing out is she preferred to be liked more than anything. And if she wasn't liked, it would bring up this sort of fear of abandonment. It's like, oh, have I done something wrong? Well, people don't like me. She couldn't handle people not liking her because it brought up this sort of fear of abandonment from her childhood. Now, all this was unconscious to her. She had no awareness of it. And so what that meant, as an example, is she would never put KPIs in with her team and be able to manage them properly, because little Jill, she would go, oh, I'm sorry, but I couldn't meet my quotas this week because, look, I've been fighting with my boyfriend, and I'm just emotionally strung out this week. And so this business owner, of course, would go, oh, I feel really sorry for her. Unconsciously, she didn't want to go, hey, well, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm a professional. It doesn't matter before I do this podcast if I'm sick, if I'm feeling crappy. A professional is a professional, right? And so you build teams out with people that are professionals. Now, people that are professionals are high in conscientiousness, by the way, and the value of conscientiousness. If you're high in the value of conscientiousness, you beat yourself up when you make a mistake. So anyone that employs someone that's high in conscientiousness, you don't have to discipline your people. They discipline themselves. They're self-correcting types of people. But of course, this particular lady, as a business owner, she didn't attract that. She actually attracted people that would pull the wool over her eyes, tell them sob stories, and she'd go, oh, I better let little Jill away this week with these problems and challenges because she's been fighting with her boyfriend. So you know what that sort of leads to the business. Now, unless that particular behavioural trait is understood and dealt with and mastered, it will always come into the way she runs her businesses. Now, I could give you about 15 different examples of people's pattern and how it stops them exiting the day-to-day operations and building a passively owned business. And I'll just use one obvious one: mistrust. So if you were betrayed as a young person, or for whatever reason you don't trust people, well, great.
Can't effectively
good luck
delegate, can you?
Yeah, can't delegate because you'll tend towards micromanaging. Yeah,
I think it's really important, because when we start, the technical steps are easy, right? But the only thing that stops us is the baggage that comes up as we start to implement these things. And on paper, managing and leading people's easy, in the sense that, we delegate and we tell them what to do, give them instructions. But suddenly when we're dealing with others or ourselves and our own inner stuff, it becomes a lot harder.
Well, yeah, and that's why a big part of what we do is help our clients understand all their, well, basically we want them to surface what we call surfacing their subconscious and unconscious belief systems and behavioral patterns that they're not really seeing, helping them to understand what is it within them that is stopping them from going to that next level. And I just want to talk to that for a bit, because whatever anyone's created to this point is created from their present level of consciousness. And what does Perry mean by consciousness? Well, that's a big word, but in this example, I'm talking about Perry as a personal consciousness is full of belief systems and full of behavioral habits. Mm-hmm. And so those belief systems and behavioral habits, and we could also throw my intellectual abilities in there, have enabled me to go so far. If I want to go to another level, I have to spot what's in me that's limiting to here, and I can give you an example of that in a moment. And what and who do I have to be to get to here? So as an example, and you've heard me talking about this just lately. So a lot of people who get stuck in the day-to-day operations, in a way that they can't see, they want to be important, and they don't even see it. It's just how they are. So as an example, if I work with some clients this afternoon and I feel really good about myself when I work with those clients, I'm unconsciously getting validation through contributing to the client, my relationship with the client, because I am a relational human being, right? Now, what may be called for in your business as an entrepreneur is to be the controller and conductor of resources, which means you shouldn't be a resource, which means maybe you shouldn't be working with clients, maybe you shouldn't be in a relational position and you should be in a strategic position. But if your unconscious disposition or subconscious disposition is to be valid and important to clients or to people in a relational way, you won't go to that next level. Without seeing that, it doesn't matter how much intellectual know-how you get. And in our programs, we have step-by-step systems. We have recruitment systems. We have everything required to build a person, no matter where they are, a startup. We don't tend to work with startups, but our IP could take someone from a startup right to the point where that business just runs without them and they can have holidays for 3 months. But, you know, without dealing with the belief systems and patterns that are controlling you, you just won't work. Never works.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that's the glue that makes the actual stuff work, right? Otherwise, the technical know-how you could get from almost anybody, but it's really dealing with that stuff that pops up from time to time.
Yeah, and that's an important thing for me. You know, I'll say this, and I'm going to say it. I'll say it on any podcast. I'll say it anywhere I go. You know, if someone's working with us, they have to be super serious about getting that result, because you can't enter our ecosystem without having a huge, you know, it's almost like I'd like to twist this conversation right now to this, without having a huge desire for self-mastery as an entrepreneur. Right? And if you want self-mastery as an entrepreneur, then what you have to do is see everything in you, every belief system, behavior, every addiction to where you are right now that locks you into the day-to-day operations, right? So as an example, my mentors were completely different to most of the business owners that I work with, because their belief systems, and I can give you a couple of their belief systems. So as an example, my mentors their whole thrust was to control resources, never be a resource, to control resources. So they never think about doing things in their business. They're hugely intelligent, hugely strategic, but this is super important. I'll show you how different this is. Right? Their first question is, if something has to be done because they've decided they need it to be done because they're very strategic, they go, who can do it? Think about that.
Yep.
Who can do it? What system needs to be developed so it can be done with reduced man hours? And how could that be automated? They're the three questions that they always ask. Now, think about that. Every business person that I would tend to work with, and some of the business people I've worked with have really transitioned over time. I've got a client just earlier this year, just sold his business for a huge amount of money. We shifted his thinking a lot over time, but even when I first started working with him, he didn't go who, what system, automation. His first question was, well, when am I going to have the time to do this? And many people watching this are going to do that. They're sitting here now. Well, when am I going to have the time to do this? Right? Because there's scarcity there. That they want to do everything. That they've been trained to do that through the schooling system. They're trained to be a resource. So that's a real key thing. I'll share one other story. Are you okay with these stories?
Yeah,
It's a real quick story. Okay. Yeah. So I used to work with my business partner was called Silvano Gabbani, and a very, very wealthy man, Jewish, Italian, South African. Now, as a South African Jew, you weren't allowed to take any money out of South Africa. I don't know if you knew that years ago, but of course, he's as I said, Jewish South African. Money all over the world. You'd have it always offshore, sneaking out of South Africa, because South Africans never trusted governments. I don't know if you know that. I've still got South African friends, and they just don't trust governments because they've been under some pretty harsh regimes. So he's my business partner, but he had multiple businesses that ran without him. Talesh Rashad was another client of mine who owned 5 or 6 businesses, and he was working, I don't know, about 10, 15 hours a week. Now, we used to go out for these boozy lunches on Tuesday, and we'd be drinking and getting drunk, and the amount of intellectual knowledge that came out of those meetings was insane, but we were having fun, right? Just having fun. And I want to talk about fun in a second, right? Because, by the way, if you're in business and you're not having fun, why are you in business? And that might sound strange to some of you, right? And your business should be set up so you can have fun. But wait where I'm going with this story, because it applies to this. So, here's me. Talesh was Singaporean Indian. And again, just very wealthy man. So here we were, always sitting around with the boozy lunches. And, they go for 4 or 5 hours. As I said, intellectually stimulating, because we'd always talk about strategy. That time for us was thinking time. Okay, just thinking, chatting, thinking. And this was an entrepreneur. I'd like to say this. These were 4 or 5 hours of pure entrepreneurial bliss. I would finish that, I'd come back, and sometimes I was a bit tipsy, and I'd be working with some clients. We'd have a chat with clients and what have you. And one of the things that I really got straight away is I'm working with these Australian entrepreneurs. Now, in the subconscious level and the unconscious level, they would never take 5 hours out for a boozy lunch. And it doesn't matter how much information I gave them to get them out of the day-to-day operations of their business, they wouldn't. Why? Well, because they're little programmed puppies. And they're programmed puppies because they were brought up to be resources. Remember I said before, my mentors were brought up to control resources. They're brought up to be resources. So they went to school. And when they went to school, and by the way, I'm not bagging education. I love education. But the education system was set up certainly got big in the movement from the agricultural age to the industrial age. And, the powers to be, the very wealthy, the very, very wealthy industrialists needed the school system to produce upgraded people that were coming off the land who had just done agriculture all their life for their factories and for management positions. And they worked with the church, right? At that stage, church was really big on sacrificing now for the future. They were a very strong stabilizing influence in society between different epochs of value systems. And so the industrialists and the church worked together with the schooling system. But what they were doing is training resources for those that controlled resources. And that exists to this day. Like, no one goes to school to learn to be an entrepreneur or to be an investor, which is how you learn to control resources. You go and you learn to trade time. I'm going to get a skill, right? And then I'm going to go out, I'm going to give that skill to someone with more power than me. Think about that. That's an unconscious programming from a schooling system and from your parents, working class, middle class, or professional class. So I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get these skills, and then I go over there to these more powerful people, and they're going to give me an hourly rate for that skill. Now, I might train to be a doctor, and that's great skill, but I'm going to go over there and I'm still going to trade that skill per hour to those people with more power. And so, and then you leave school. This is me included too. I'm no different to any of this. It's only because of my mentors and my inner work that I start to see things differently. I leave school, and what's everyone pat Perry on the back for? They pat him on the back because he's a hard worker. You're a hard worker, Perry, right? You're a hard worker. So as a resource, you have to be a hard worker. So all those business owners, I hear I'm out having a boozy lunch with the very wealthy, that's Silvano and Talesh, who know what I know how to do to get businesses run without them. They have no shred of guilt. This is important what I'm sharing here. Yeah. No shred of guilt, none. Yeah. This is actually how they think. We are so satisfied with our lives because we have won. And we have won because we are smarter than these other business owners. Mm. And then I would come back and work with the Australian and New Zealand clients who unconsciously had to fulfill that hard work ethic that they were trained to as a resource, and would feel guilty if they had time out. Because what they don't realise is hard work isn't what builds passively owned businesses. I'm not saying you won't have to work hard, but hard work on its own does not build passively owned businesses. Hard work on its own doesn't get you out of the day-to-day operations. Hard work just locks you into that paradigm more and more and more. Okay? So as resources, we're trained to feel guilty about being lazy. So the average business owner feels guilty if they read for 4 hours. But this is where they've got it wrong. So Talesh, and the same with my mentors, Silvano, we have won because we're smart. Now, how are they smart? We want to control resources, not be resources. We want to control resources. Now, there's still skill sets to learn to control resources. I'm still upgrading mine. I'm still improving myself in that area. Okay? Where if you go down the tree, back to what we were talking about, those that are trained to be resources think work does it. No. So they work smart. How can I do this without me doing it? How can I do this with a system? How can I achieve this with a system rather than my man hours? Who can do it so I don't have to do it? Now, they're not lazy. So that's thinking, right? See that they're thinking, and 4 hours reading a book would be nothing to them because they would value the information they're getting from the book, because they understand that information now applied into the business produces more freedom for them and more profit for them. So they move from the doing to the thinking, as an example.
You can definitely see how this is a different paradigm in thinking and decision making, because ordinarily, I'd say most business owners there's a couple things. Culturally, we are rewarded, or what's the word? We're like put on a pedestal for being busy, right? So that's kind of like hustle is sort of celebrated. That's the first thing. There's the shames and guilts of not working, or perceived to be not working, and to be in the trenches yourself with the team. There's all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Then there's all the fears and guilts and shames and all the other baggage that comes up when you have to try and delegate and work with team members, right? To start to step away. So it's a different paradigm. It's a different skill set, in the sense like a technical skill set, right? Like different to if you're playing in one position on a football field versus another. It's two different skill sets.
Oh, it's two different skill sets, and it's funny you use that analogy, because I often use. I when I'm working with people, one of my jobs as in doing what I'm doing with coaching and facilitating is to really muck around with people's thinking. I've got to push them up against themselves. So, what I'll see in business, and this is a really good way of looking at it. Have you ever seen an orchestra, Lance?
Yeah.
And the conductor, what's the conductor do?
Sits back and waves his fingers, and it all kind of happens. Yeah.
Correct. And how important is the conductor?
He's the guy. right?
He's the guy, right? Now, everyone else in that team is important, and they're experts. You've got an expert cello player. You have an expert drummer. You've got expert bass players, violin players. Can the conductor play any of those instruments? Probably not. Right. And not that well. Okay, but they do something really well. So, how many business owners do you know that are trying to be a conductor and play the instruments in the orchestra?
Yeah, all of them. Almost all of them.
Thank you. Okay. Now, I could go into the chaos that causes. I could go into the roadblock that causes. I could go into all the lack of time with family, the lack of joy that the business gives them. That what you're just talking about now is a trap. So a person's a business owner, not really, with jobs in their business. It's the same thing if I look at, say, a sporting team. The coach coaches, and they don't play, right? They don't play. So it's a similar thing. So anyone that's trying to be a conductor and play their instruments, or trying to be a coach and trying to play on it, it just doesn't work. And if you talk to most business owners who don't have this thinking, somehow they think that if they're better at what they do, at their thing, I'm going to be a better, watchmaker. I'm going to be a better plumber. I'm going to be a better engineer. Our engineering company is going to provide the best service. Again, I want everyone to provide great experiences for their clients, and you've got to be good at what you do. But no, that's not going to make you successful. It might make you successful, but it won't help you build a business that gives you time freedom. Won't help in the slightest little bit. Your thinking's in the wrong place. Completely wrong place, right?
And that thinking affects decision making and business planning, and the paradigm is completely different.
Yeah, the paradigm is completely different. And yeah, that's it. So that's why we have to do a lot of work shifting people's thinking from being a resource in their business to controlling the resources in their business. Now, controlling resources is strategy, IP, people, and capital. Time is spent building out systems that run separately from you. That's a good use of time, because then you're growing cash flow machines. You're growing the overall value of your business for sale. When someone's working in their business, they're not building those systems out that run separately from them. They're trying to be the system themselves, as an example.
Yeah. And then the risk that I think most people are aware of, but don't want to face, is that, well, what happens to you? Something happens to you, right? What if you get sick? What if you get injured? What if you die? What then happens to the business?
Well,
how does that affect your income stream and your family and all those other?
Well, this is again the answer to that, right? So the answer to that is to build a passively owned business. Now, passively owned doesn't mean, I have some clients who have got to the point where they're only working a couple of hours a week. Most people do want to have greater involvement with their business. But the solution is that, right? Because if I am in the center of my business and I die, my family get nothing. If I've built something to run that doesn't require me, meaning I could go away for a month, have a couple of phone calls, and the business might grow when I'm away, my family still make money whether I die or doesn't matter. They're still making money. Okay, same thing. One of the reasons that, and I want to get into this one time because I've had a fun life, that one of the big reasons that I do this, have done this stuff, is I wanted to go surfing with my boys, and some of probably my most exceptional experiences in life have come just being on deep surf trips in the middle of nowhere with my kids, right? I've just been in New Zealand. I can hear my Kiwi accent leaking out. And the amount of quality time and fun I've had with my boys is insane, absolutely insane. all because of being able to have businesses run without me. So often I work with these mothers, and these mothers are entrepreneurs, and here's the thing they experience all the time, right? They're like, oh, God, I feel so guilty. I just feel so guilty because I'm not spending enough time with my kids. And then they go spend some time with their kids, and then they feel guilty because they're not being the perfect entrepreneur or not looking after their team and staff enough. And this is the stress they have trying to manage this, and they're not looking after themselves because they're putting everyone else first, and they're run down. And it's what I call the superwoman complex. You know, like you'd get that. You must know someone, she wants to be a really good mum. And that's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Right? Beautiful thing. Wants to be really there for her team. Wants to be there for her husband. She's got this model of perfection, but it can't be obtained. So the more that mother is required in the business, the less of a mother she can be. And so again, the solution is to set it up so it runs more passively from you. Same thing with, you know, and I just want to say this, right? So what I've observed is people get really disconnected from their why. And this is an interesting personal story. I know we're going to be careful of time here, but I think this will really, you know, set a precedent. So my whole life was based from a fairly early age when I first started to learn to do this inner work. My question is, what excites me? What gives me juice? What fulfills me? What inspires me? And one of the things that always came up was water, surfing, yacht racing, kite surfing, windsurfing, all those types of things. And when I was a 3-year-old, that showed up as a 3-year-old because my parents used to say you're a fish. Because I just go wherever, I grew up in cold climate, but I just get in the water and just stay in it. So what happens is that I set my businesses up to support that lifestyle. Now, you know, because I've told you personally that I had my body taken out, probably about 3 years ago now. And when I had my body taken out, which in itself was a really interesting learning experience, and as my body's coming back now, I've had some great help, just incredible. But for 3 years, I couldn't do, as I say to my wife, I had everything, apart from lovemaking, everything that I love taken away from me. And that was a good self-learning experience. But what I started to get a sense of is how most people live, which is what I'd call comfortably numb. They're numb, they're disconnected from what matters to them. So what I observe is people live so long in this kind of, I have to do this, I've got to get that done, that they become trapped, that they actually become disconnected from what they're here on the planet to do, to play. Right? Like I really believe, you know, I was born with these inbuilt tendencies, one to be in the water, one to work with people. That's very natural for me. And so if I'm following my whys, I'm going to do that. So as an example, my next phase of business, because my body's coming back, is all about how do I spend more time doing some open ocean sailing. I want to sail my own boat to Tonga and Samoa on a surf trip. Right? And so, again, the key to having a good life as a business person is setting your business up to do what matters to you, what gives you joy, what gives you fun. Simple to me, right? It's funny, I had this lady say to me the other day, she goes, oh, you could have had way more success if, she didn't know me, right? You could have had way more success if you haven't chose surfing so much. And I said, you don't know me that well. I said, my business was set up so that I could go chasing surfing. And I realized at that point in time, she's a well-known business person in all sorts of trouble, actually, because of how she runs a business.
Yeah.
That's her mindset. I went away from that going, why does she even think like that? And she's been trained to be a resource. So she does not even have a mental model of having a business run separately from her.
So this brings up a really good point that I want to touch on before we wrap up today. Can you talk more about the passive business formula and this fire yourself movement in the sense of what that means to somebody?
Okay.
Being, is fire yourself, does it mean you have to sell your business and get out and go, travel the world forever? Or is it just about getting 5 hours of work, 5 hours of free time back a week?
We're doing a challenge at the moment, which is we're giving people a month in our Fire Yourself program for free. They have to apply for that, by the way, because we got to make sure they're the right fit and what have you. But what they'll do over that period of time is they will get between 5 to 8 hours back of time within that month. And we know we deliver, right? So this is part of our antidote to all the shucksters out there who, we don't even have locked-in contracts, mate, in our big programs. Why? Why would we? If you don't deliver, you've got to have locked-in contracts. We've got the right people in our program who want the result. We've got all the IP and ways of shifting them there. So that movement, just that we're giving 3 months in the program with that. But basically what it's about for people is that if they want less stress, right, they want to get out of the chaos. They want to get out of the day-to-day operations. They want a better running business. Like I've got Telstra Businesswoman of the Year as my clients, because any business that runs really, really well without you is also an award-winning business. So that's a very important thing to say. So there's people watching this who are working in their business and their business is chaos. They're stressed. There's no operational efficiencies. They can't even have holidays. The person that can have holidays because their business that runs without them, it runs perfectly because there's no roadblocks in that business. So the movement of the fire self is all about clients being in a community with people that not only have the technical expertise, like we've got recruitment systems, we've got everything that a person would need. It's more about being in a community that keeps you in a full immersion environment to stop you reverting back to your past forms of thinking and to upgrade your thinking as an entrepreneur so you can become the person who can build a more passively owned business. And I'll leave you with this. Passively owned business is the only business that the business will grow when you're not there. Right? That's an important thing because you're working with people who grow your business for you. So you don't have to. You've still got responsibilities. That business then can scale because there's less roadblocks, because we work with department thing. Everything works to operational efficiency with more passive income, leverage income and scalable income. You're the conductor. That's the second stage where you're overviewing like the conductor.
Yep.
There's another stage where you're putting a leadership team in or a leader, depending on the business size. You're working from the dashboard, so you're getting all the important, and you can be off traveling. And so it's about a movement about, let's bring the fun back into business. Let's build businesses that give us good lifestyles. Let's build businesses that allow us to do the things that we love. Let's build businesses that give us the wealth that we is required to, I'm not a particular materialist, but wealth is a way of celebrating, spending time with people, doing the beautiful, fun things in this world. I'm a spiritual person, man, so to be honest, and I think materialism's gone rampantly wrong on this planet. But regardless, prosperity is important just to take away survival so that we can come here into our hearts, and it's far easier to do the stuff we love with the people we love,
Absolutely. So as a action for people that they can get started on this journey, what resources have you got for them? Where can they go? What can they download? What can they read?
Great. So down below here, you're going to see 2 blueprints. One is the Fire Yourself Blueprint, which is a step-by-step blueprint. It's only $27. There's also the ultimate team and delegation system down below. Again, $27. But if you're super serious, we're just finishing off the page for the 4-week opportunity. Free gift, come and work with us for that 4 weeks. Just shoot me a message. So I don't care where it comes through, Instagram, Facebook, email. Just shoot us a message and tell us you're interested, because that's where you should go. Then you get first-hand experience of all this stuff.
Yeah, may as well dive in the deep end and see what it's all about, and then they can make an informed decision.
It's free. That's right. We're promising you're going to get 5 to 8 hours back for that first month, from that first month.
Yeah, and what's that worth, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. Anything else you want to add?
No.
Cool.
Just only one thing. Here, ladies and gentlemen, in this body we have this life. Let's. If you're a business person, don't get stuck in your. If you stay stuck in your business, you're just really ensuring a hellish existence. I actually reckon most people are better off having a job than being stuck in their business, to be honest.
For sure.
Right. come and learn to join to build a business that runs more passively from you. That's just a smart thing to do, as far as I'm concerned. Everything benefits. You sell your business for more. You make more money. You have way more time off. You get time with the family. You know, you get to travel. You know where I'm going with that.
It's what everyone gets into business for in the first place, right? Like it's that freedom.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up there. Thanks, Perry. We'll chat soon.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.